LTH product briefing. I'm here today with my friend Max Paterson, the General Manager for the United States for Bryter. Max, welcome.
Hey, Nikki, how you doing?
Very well, thank you. It's good to see you and have you here. Bryter, I think, will be known to many of the people watching. Bryter is a no-code solution that has been around for a while and really became very significant on the legal tech market by virtue of very deep funding rounds and also, I would say, a fairly rapid spread across jurisdictions and deep market penetration quite rapidly. But Max, today you're here to speak with us specifically about a particular use case of Bryter. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Nikki. And it's interesting how this has evolved. So I'm going to be talking today about a solution that we've built in the funds management space, in the MFN space. And it's funny how deep we get into separating the people who know exactly what all of the things I just said mean and the people who might not. It's getting a little bit into the weeds of law firm practices, but it's essentially a space where law firms are helping large private funds do investment rounds, essentially fundraise money. But as you can imagine, there's a lot of T's to cross and I's to dot, information to collect and documents to disperse along that road.
Interesting. And how long ago did this use case for Bryter come about? And also, is it available as a separate product, or is this part of Bryter that people get as part of a license?
So this is something we've developed over the past couple of years. Actually, I have inherited this project as well, but had some experience working in this space at a previous company. But we've really gone to the marketplace, and it happened organically, where a lot of what we do as a no-code platform is work with our law firm customers and our corporate legal customers to discover what their biggest pain points and what their biggest items are in their pipeline. And this is something that seemed to pop up quite a bit across the law firm space, especially larger firms where this is highly competitive amongst them, but also one of the core elements of a lot of their financial practices. It's something we started hearing about at a number of different firms. And as we dug in deeper, we realized that this is a space that's becoming commoditized and a space that being built on a no-code platform, you can really develop it your own. So what we've done is we've actually worked with a lot of firms to develop their own bespoke custom solutions to this. And those are fully proprietary. That's theirs. We're never going to talk or show about that ever. However, in getting to know the space a little more and digging deeper, and even as our products developed, what we've done is built our own version of it. Is that we generally know the space and we've seen the trends across how a number of firms have implemented it. So we built a template, as you can call it, to actually go into the type of functionality that we see common amongst all of them and that is core to delivering a solution like this. And the way this works is everything is natively built on the platform. So none of this is custom code or smoke and mirrors or anything like that. These are all core functionalities that anyone could pick up the tool and develop. But instead of starting at the ground floor when we're talking to firms and as firms are innovating in the space constantly, we have something to bring to them to say, look, here's a baseline product to help inspire you as you're doing a more custom solution, but let's either pick and choose pieces and functionality from it to reuse so you can build your own version of it, or let's use this as the base version and customize along the way, again, so you can have your own version. It's available along with the platform itself and as a standalone, but still built in the platform. And it's something where we can use it as a jumping off point. So that usually when we bring it to a firm and they're looking to get into the space, especially then, is they say, oh, wow, yes, I love this, I love that, I love this. And how about this part does that? And how about we add on this and add on that? Every firm has their own special way of doing it.
Interesting. I certainly have heard this as well from a number of firms that it's a common pain point and a problem people are trying to solve. Super curious to see what Bryter has built. Why don't we jump in and take a look?
Cool. Let's jump right in. I'm just going to go back here and I'm going to share a few slides because I think what we've done is we've found this quite interesting in this space. This is how we see the funds management process. And if you're familiar with this at a firm, then none of this will be a surprise to you, but we've essentially segregated it into 5 blocks so that you're setting up a fund, you're onboarding some investors, you're creating these things called subscription letters. Then you have an entire process called the MFN year-end elections and side letter process. And then we've tacked a little piece of reporting and analytics on the end because we think that's important as well, but that's more of a feature we've built into the system as well. And as we're analyzing the process, is a lot of firms that are in this space and looking to innovate in this space are motivated economically. That's the basis of why this has really been developed, is that a lot of their clients are actually pushing back on charging a lot for a lot of this administrative work. So the write-offs in this space can be quite high. So they're trying to minimize those. And in some cases, firms are actually moving to more fixed fee models, or they take a percentage of the funds that are invested, in which case this is for efficiencies. They want to make sure that this process is figured out end to end so they can keep their costs low. And in analyzing this process, we've realized that there are spaces here that can provide some quick wins so that you can actually get a pretty robust solution spun up quickly to provide that value. And the way we do that is using the core processes that Bryter already does, a combination of intaking information, automating documents and workflows, doing some integrations, and then actually there is an AI component to the whole thing, which I can show as well. And that's where we've built our template application, what we call Funds Management 2.0. And the approach we've taken on this is almost like a menu. As you come in, you see the parts of the process which you want to automate first, or where the low-hanging fruit is. And we can actually work with your team we actually do almost like a mini workshop. You give us 90 minutes, we give you 10 hours of work. We'll actually do a full run through with you to try and scope out the solution, understand how you do it. We go off on our own and we build you a prototype, which you can click through and take back to the business in order to validate. So these are some of the questions we use actually in that workshop itself. So to develop our own tool, we went through that process ourselves. This is the actual screenshot from the whiteboard where we were trying to figure out the data structure on the back end. And then we, of course, made it a bit more sophisticated because data is the main driver behind this use case. This is the foundational concept of what you're going to see next. And finally, pushed it through an entire workflow so that end to end, there was a solution that worked for the entire process, in addition to some AI components, which we've pushed in. So the solution, why don't we run through that?
I just have to say how much I love that kind of design flow, the actual digging into the problem, understanding it, and gradually understanding the data and then the workflow. It's beautiful.
And it's so important, I think, and often understated, is that we're not trying to dress this up in front of, here's all the glossy stuff. I want to show you how the sausage is made, because I'm hoping the people that are watching this video are the ones that want to dig in with us so they understand that we are taking into account your way of doing things and understanding that this is an enterprise grade product, is that we're building this from the foundation up, but hopefully with our template in mind to speed things along, to make sure that as robust a solution can be put in place as possible. Great. This is the Funds Manager 2.0, as we call it. Let's run through here. Along with the data structures, what you're seeing is the information is segregated into several different places. So you've got the ability to spin up a new fund, in which case you're looking at creating the new fund, which would be a simple form which you fill out, which includes several different pieces of data, including a standard template if you already have a sub-agreement template coming in. But we're going to start that you've already created the fund. What we've specialized in and seen the marketplace move more quickly towards is the MFA process. And if you're not familiar, that means most favored nation, which is essentially a fancy way of saying that a lot of the investors which are giving the most money want to make sure they're also getting the best deal amongst the reporting and all of the other elements along with their investment. So they're able to look across everything that's proposed in terms of all of the deals that everyone else is getting, and they can pick and choose the ones that work for them. So in this case, what we've done is allowed for the possibility to input these types of clauses, work with the ML process, and show things in a little more robust manner. So you've got your funds, and you can immediately see this is your dashboard where you can see a lot of core high-level information that you've got included in the funds. And drilling down, this is where you start to see that relational database aspect of things, where you can actually look at the investors within the fund, how much they've invested, and some other core information that's amongst them. And even furthermore is you can take a look, and this has to do with the MFN process, of the provisions. So this is the Funds Management 2.0. So what it is that template application that I mentioned, where this is the baseline app that we show and present and we work from. And its purpose is twofold. One is to show the potential of what can be done. And two is to actually show the functionality that you can implement and reuse when law firms especially are looking to automate this step of the process. So this one in particular handles the MFN procedure. And if everyone's not familiar with it, essentially it's a procedure where major investors who give a lot of money towards funds can elect provisions that other investors have also benefited from. People can have the best deals given a certain category of information that they're given. So the structure follows the data structure that I showed earlier. So you have your funds, you can add or create a new fund down here. I'm not going to show that because it's very boring, and you can imagine you just put in the name and some information and it creates it. But you also have access to a whole bunch of biographical information right off the bat here. As you drill down, you're looking through the fund at the other data sets that are attached to that. So in this case, you have all of the investors in the fund, you have more information, and as it's shown through here, and then you can actually take certain actions on that information. So if we look at this test investor, there are certain clauses which are attached to this investor, in which case they can elect them or unelect them as they go through. And remember, this isn't the investor view yet. This is still the funds manager, the administrator. You're looking at that highest level view of everything. There's a separate path if you're looking at it from the investor point of view, where you can only see what you've invested in and you can elect different provisions as you come through. So this more shows the data structure that you can drill down on. Probably the most interesting part, which I'll show, is as you're looking at all of the provisions within a fund, is you're starting to create these databases or clause libraries where you can manage all of the clauses involved in the NMFN procedure, or the sort of MFN structure, so that from a funds level is you can see all of the clauses and their eligibility to be elected. So in this case, what we're doing is we're taking a look at the different investors which are eligible to actually elect the fund. So the way this is implemented is different on a firm-to-firm basis, but the beauty of what we're showing in this demo is that you can slice the cake in any way you want it. So if you want the investors to elect certain provisions, is you can set the qualifications so they can do that. If you want this to be elected at a fund level, or you want it to be managed there, we can do that too. Or if you want to see from an investor point of view all of the funds they're involved in, is you can do that too. Because all of this is related so that you can split it any way you want it.
So this is showing provisions, and then you can look at the investors who are eligible to elect that provision. Is that right?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And as we go through, actually, it'll help to show how you introduce a new provision. So we'll go through, we'll take a look at the investors, and we'll say, okay, we want to add a new provision. You have the ability to add new provisions in bulk if you want to upload an Excel, which some firms like to do. But we've also created a way for you to do it on a one-by-one basis. So if you come in and you say, okay, I want a new provision, is you can say, let's say legal fees. Is you say, okay, this is an economic provision, is we can say purchaser pays legal fees. I don't know, this is not very sophisticated at this point, but then what you have essentially is the content for the provision itself. Is you've got the text, you can segregate it in some manner, and it's got a title. And then attached with that provision are qualifications. You can say, okay, electing this provision should only be venture capital firms and individuals, so that only investors who are venture capital firms and individuals should be able to elect this. Furthermore, you can say, actually, I only want people in Luxembourg to be able to, or firms or individuals in Luxembourg.
And be clear that location eligibility is often determined by regulatory provisions, right? So it's, you're
That's correct.
coding the regulatory limitations on election into the platform.
That's exactly right. And this biographical information is already included when you're onboarding the investor. So it saves you a ton of time and to bring the curtain back a bit, is that usually the way this is done is investors are physically mailed a packet, in which case they open it and they tick some boxes and then they mail the packet back. But to create that packet, a lot of this this, what you're seeing now, is done manually. Is someone has to sit on the back end and say, oh, show me all of those clauses, and then I'll only apply these ones to venture capital firms that are in Luxembourg that have invested more than $3 million. In this case, it's doing all the work for you. You're just giving it the information. And you can submit that, and it goes into the clause library. What we've done as well, which I think is also cool, which some firms have really taken advantage of, is the AI capabilities attached to that now. So in addition to, and we'll go add a new provision, in addition to you adding it manually, is we now have the ability for you to actually analyze all this from an AI point of view. I'm just going to open because I have a spreadsheet full of, there we go, a spreadsheet full of different clauses. So what you can do is actually put the text into your clause, you hit next, and what it's doing is it's analyzing it in context for all of the other clauses that I've put in and in some of the clause library that you've got. So it addresses it and it gives it a name, all of which is editable. So if you don't like what it's done, there's a suggestion that it's given. It's suggested a provision type, so it's automatically segregated. And then you can then add what the qualifications are for showing this. So let's say everyone that gives over $4 billion and is an investment bank can elect this. And then even further is you can compare it. You can say, okay, great, I'm ready to put this in the database. But before that, why don't you look through the database and see if there's anything that's comparable to this? Because when you're giving electable provisions to your investors, is you want to minimize the duplication as much as possible, because then you minimize the amount of work that the fund has to do later on when it has to comply with all of these. So what AI's done is it's taken that provision, compared it against the entire database of everything that's already in there. It said, oh, you know what? There's actually a duplicate. Here's the one you proposed. Here's the one that's similar. And as should always be the case with AI, here's why I actually picked out that these two are similar. In which case you can then take the action. You can say, okay, I want to save the one that's proposed, or I want to delete the one that's proposed and save the one that's already in there, or keep the existing one as we go through. So what we're seeing in this facet is that we're leveraging AI to do very specific things, and it's always being double checked by a person. So it's streamlining the process, but you're not losing control over it. And that's when I mentioned earlier about how we involve AI in our use cases, is it's doing very prescriptive things. In this case, it's comparing, it's summarizing its work in terms of here's why I found this duplicate, and it's even extracting pieces from the clauses themselves. So this is the demo we like to show. There's a ton of more bells and whistles that are in here, as you can imagine, including extraction, which is coming through. So you can actually upload sub-agreements, you can upload side letters, you can extract clauses and take things from there. But this kind of gives you a gist of what we're seeing in the space, how sophisticated law firms are getting in the space. And again, remember, this is a jumping off point. They're then taking this and creating their own little ecosystem around it so they can continue to be competitive in the space.
And Max, I assume that as well on the end of this, and not for showing now, but you likely have also built out the ability for firms to then send the completed side letters with the elected provisions to investors for signing off on those, which means, again, you prevent that additional process of having to create each individual side letter.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So not only is this an administrative tool for the firms themselves to input things and to make sure things are streamlined, but once the investors have elected what they're eligible for, is that it then compiles everything into the side letters and it does send everything out so that you've got a full record of everything. And again, like I mentioned, this is an end-to-end solution in most cases, so that you're not just taking one chunk that's the biggest pain point, which is usually where we start, but you can build from there so that you have a true end-to-end solution.
Wonderful. Max, thank you so much. And I really appreciate you coming to show us this. It's fantastic. It's really great to see the solution, and especially some of the AI integrations, I think just makes it so usable. We will put a URL at the bottom of the screen so people can reach out to Bryter and Max to find out more about this and to get a broader demo should they wish to. But otherwise, Max, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Nikki. Pleasure to do it, and always happy to chat about this weird corner of the legal space that I don't think has gotten a lot of love lately, but we're really digging in with a lot of firms now. So I'm always happy to chat about it.
Wonderful. And thank you everyone for watching. We'll be back soon. Thanks everyone. Bye.